Good evening, YouTube. This is the Atheist Chef. And unless you've been living under a rock, you have heard about the Darren Wilson and Michael Brown case. Now, not only am I going to throw in my 2 cents on this, but I'm going to use some elements of the case that actually have a connection, well, with the reason why I'm making this video to begin with. And it probably won't take you long to figure out what that point is, but let's go on. So in case you don't know much of what really happened, I'm going to give a real brief synopsis of the story, and we're going to go from there. Not too long ago, Dorian Johnson and Michael Brown entered into a gas station and stole some cigarillos. The gas station owner reported this to the police, and the police, put it out on the officers, and Darren Wilson was one of the nearest people on the scene. Now, we're not sure if he was actually heading toward the scene or was just in the general area, but he, eventually came across 2 guys he described. One was Michael Brown and Dorian Johnson, but he wasn't aware of who they were when he saw them. He noticed, however, that they were walking down the middle of the road, and he noticed that they were blocking traffic and cars were actually having to stop and then go around them, so he tells them to pull off on the side of the road. So he drives away, and then as he looks, he realizes who he's been dealing with. He realizes that the description of the Michael Brown and Dorian Johnson as in having a ball cap and a certain time, I think he has some sandals on and stuff like that. He realized it as he was pulling away, so he backed up and pulled up right next to him. And at this point, there was words exchanged. Actually, I believe some say that the car door hit the 2 as he opened it up, or that Michael Brown pushed him back, and that's whatever. But he was this far away from him. He pulled right next to him, just right there. So as the cop is opening the door, Michael Brown, or whatever, the door ends up being closed. Michael Brown and Darren Wilson begin to they're kind of grabbing each other, pulling each other through the window, and they're kind of fighting there. Michael Brown throws a few punches at Darren Wilson, and there was shots fired from inside the vehicle. Michael Brown and Dorian Johnson began to run away. Dorian Johnson kind of went around to some other vehicles, and Michael Brown just went straight down the road. A few seconds later, Darren Wilson hops out of his vehicle, draws out his gun, and he says that he told Michael Brown to stop, in which he didn't at first. He fired a few rounds at Michael Brown. Michael Brown stops and turns around. And then a few seconds later, maybe 20 seconds later or so, Officer Wilson fires again, eventually killing Michael Brown. Now, I'm leaving out a lot of details because I want to cover those. This is just the really brief synopsis of what was happening. So why are we talking about this? Well, one of the biggest reasons why Darren Wilson was not indicted for this was because of the contradictory eyewitness testimony between about the 20-25 people that they've actually gathered. They had compiled all of the testimonies from all the people, and they came across with just so many contradictory statements that I don't think the jury had any option but to say that he was not guilty. So let me go over a few of these. Now, with these findings, you'll see that some people responded yes, no, and some didn't respond at all because maybe they didn't see the whole thing, or they couldn't tell from everything, they just heard shots, etc. They were helping piece together certain bits of it, so you may see some different numbers. So the first question was, did Michael Brown have a tussle with Darren Wilson? This is referring to while they were in the car, if they were actually kind of fighting over a gun was part of the story. 10 people said yes, 3 people said no, and of course the rest didn't see out of the about 25. Was Michael Brown running away when Darren Wilson was firing? 16 people said yes, 4 people said no. Did Michael Brown put his hands to his waist? Now, there was some talk that he might have been trying to fix his belt buckle or kind of fix up his pants, or one person said that he might have got shot in the stomach. So 4 said yes, 2 said no. Did Michael Brown face Darren Wilson when fired upon? This was, of course, saying that when Michael Brown had turned around, it said Michael Brown had run away, and they turned to face him. This 15 people said yes, 2 said no. Did Michael Brown charge Officer Wilson? 7 said yes, 5 said no. Was Michael Brown's hands up when he was fired upon? 16 said yes, 2 said no. Was Michael Brown kneeling when fired upon? 15 said yes, 2 said no. Did Darren Wilson fire at Michael Brown while he was down? 5 said yes, 7 said no. How many shots were fired overall? It was kind of a mixture for all of them, but many of them ranged between 3 and 11, and there was not a solid answer where one had more than the other. 3, 7, 8, 10, 12. There was no rhyme or reason to the pattern. On top of that, we also had some really weird eyewitness reports that just didn't add up at all. For example, two of the witnesses said that Michael Brown fired a taser round at Michael Brown and missed. Darren Wilson said he never fired a taser, and nor was he actually equipped with one, and they didn't actually find any taser on Darren Wilson, and he admits that he doesn't carry one because the force only has so many. 2 reports of after the tussle with Darren Wilson and Michael Brown in the car, that they heard something metal hit the ground. And they both actually thought they might have been a gun or something, but no gun was found. One person said that Michael Brown was shot in the back of the leg. Autopsy reports saying that there was no shot in the back of the leg. Michael Brown was not shot in the back at any point. He was actually only shot from the front. One witness reported that he was actually shot in the stomach, which would explain why he brought his hands to his waist side, which a lot of people saw him do. But again, the autopsy report did not show any bullet wounds near the stomach. They were all near his hand, in his lower arm, but not in his stomach. Now, that actually is just having to deal with the outside people. But what about the ones that are really up close? The Dorian Johnson and Darren Wilson. What was their testimony? What did they say happened? Now, Dorian Johnson, of course, had his testimony as well, and his story comports with most of what was actually said. Now, he does try to say that in the tussle, Michael Brown's head was never inside the car, as if he was pulled through the window or anything like that. But even some of the people in the eyewitness that were eyewitnesses said, oh yeah, there was points in which they were going back and forth, head in and head out. Johnson, the guy that was right there, according to the story, he was just to the right of Michael Brown, just a foot away from him, said that Michael Brown was shot in the chest. But he wasn't. He was actually shot in the hand. This was during that tussle. Then Johnson also said that Darren Wilson did not tell them to freeze or stop. Now, of course, Darren Wilson would care to disagree and say that, of course, he told Michael Brown to stop moving in order to freeze or to get down on the ground. One witness said that he did tell him to stop, but he never said get on the ground. He just told him to stop moving because he was afraid that Michael Brown was starting to charge him. So, in short, and as you've probably already gathered, is that this eyewitness testimony from all of these people, even including the Darren Wilson and Dorian Johnson that were right there, that saw all the things take place, they all seem to tell different stories, little small minor details that are quite crucial to the case, completely different. Was there any fighting? No, there wasn't. Yes, there was. Was he shot in the back? Yes, he was. No, he wasn't. Was he shot in the leg? Yes, he was. No, he wasn't. Was he charging? Yes, he was. No, he wasn't. So many little bits of details that it should have been quite clear what happened. So why are they so different? With things like confirmation bias and prejudice and hate, We see this between the Ferguson police force and the residents, and then the residents to the Ferguson police force. There can be all sorts of, vitriol and bias towards each other, and that has led to people lying and making up things in support of Darren Wilson and in support of Michael Brown, making up details that didn't really happen, or people willing to be an eyewitness testimony when they actually had never seen it, and they had to get their testimonies removed from the court. And we also have the kind of shock that can happen to people when they're in such a situation like this. Dorian Johnson was, if you read his transcription of his testimony, you see that he was in good shock for the most of it, and a lot of times he just sat there scared and didn't know what to do, and he wasn't thinking clearly, etc., etc. It can lead to people not really being able to fully pay attention, or having a tunnel vision, not catching all the details, or missing important ones. And then you have people like Darren Wilson, that maybe he's not all that innocent either. I mean, being he's the cop that just killed somebody, he can be playing in his mind over and over and over the situation, and to make a justification for why he shot, he could skew some things toward his favor. I mean, you can even see it in the way that he talked. He said that Michael Brown gave him a look that was like he was demonic, and stuff like that. You can't sometimes tell from these testimonies if they're really being as objective as they should be, and it's obvious that they aren't. It's just, you can see this from the contradictions between all the reports of the eyewitness testimonies. So what's the point? Why am I saying all this? Well, if we look at the Bible and we hear from Christians about the supposed first-hand eyewitness accounts about Jesus' death and resurrection and his return and his appearance of the 500 people, and they say these are first-hand accounts. But we look at the Gospels and we see the differences, and we see little details, differ, and we see contradictions at certain points, and we see just things that just don't add up. But yet, oh no, these are first-hand accounts. These are true. They wouldn't have a reason to lie, and they wouldn't be able to make it up, etc. But with just the Darren Wilson and Michael Brown case alone, you put in bias or just anything towards a case, and you can make up a story, you can make up elements to a story all you want, and you just say it's the first-hand account. I saw it myself. Especially if people are wanting to believe you, they're going to believe you. So, and that's not just this Darren Wilson case. This is everywhere. We see all kinds of people lying on their first-hand accounts, or just completely wrong, such as aliens and all this kind of different stuff as well. But this is just another one of those reminders to you Christians out there that think that just because someone said that they saw it, someone said that they saw Jesus, someone said they saw this, of course they had to believe this, they had to believe this, they wouldn't do this, if they didn't see it themselves. That's not necessarily the case. These people in Ferguson, they're going out and rioting for what they believe, that Michael Brown was wrongfully killed. They are willing to fight up against the police. They're doing all of these things in the name of defending Michael Brown. So, Christians, you're going to have to do more than just tell me that you had first-hand eyewitness accounts that, why would they lie, or how could they have possibly lied? Well, it's very obvious why they could have lied, because they had a narrative that they were trying to sell. Now, what you need, something empirical, something substantial, something that I could be justified in believing in. Until then, your work's not done. This is the Atheist Chef, signing off. Peace.